Our longtime show sponsor, Rocklinc Investment Partners, has launched a publicly traded all-equity ETF, the Rocklinc Principled Equity ETF. It trades on the TSX under the ticker symbol RKLC. If you're a do-it-yourself investor or you work with a financial advisor you like but want to add some Rocklinc exposure without the full-service experience, this is for you. It's the same Rocklinc team, the same proven investment approach, now available by simply searching for ticker RKLC in your brokerage account. For questions or to learn more, contact Rocklinc at 905-631-5462 or email info@rocklinc.com. That's link with a C, ROCKLINC.com. And we're back with more on News Talk Saga 960. So very glad you could join us on this Monday, April 27th, an anniversary date. I was married, my lovely wife, 35 years ago today. And thank you. Anyway, Jonathan Wellum doesn't want to hear about all that stuff. He wants to talk about your money and what's happening to it. He, of course, is president and CEO of a terrific company, Rocklinc Investment Partners. And they are our terrific sponsor. We very much appreciate them being part of the Saga 960 family and sponsor of this great show. And I'm also a client of theirs. They do a terrific job. I have no regrets. I sleep a lot better these days as a result of knowing that Rocklinc is in my corner. So welcome to the show once again, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Mark, and congratulations. 35 years, that's a major accomplishment in our day. I'm just behind you there. I'm coming up on 33, and so away we go.
Absolutely. It's fantastic, and I would not be where I am without my wife. Of course, she's in the other room, and she can't hear. She's not listening to the meetings right now, so I don't want to encourage it too. It's the truth. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Carney Wealth Debt Fund. I know you're very excited about this, Jonathan, he said sarcastically. Borrowed money. What do you make of this in comparison with what other countries do in order to have wealth funds that benefit their people rather than heap more debt on their people?
Yeah, this is just another announcement by Carney that he's trying to make this a momentous sort of event and get people to get excited about what's happening in terms of capital projects. But let's just look at what he's actually doing here. Let me just give you 5 quick elements in terms of the sovereign wealth announcement this morning. And these are more descriptive, and then we can look at critique them. But initial funding, $25 billion, supposedly be deployed over 3 years. That doesn't come from any kind of wealth. That's just debt. He's just putting us further into debt. That's why it really should be called a sovereign debt fund. And that's $25 billion over 3 years too. That's a drop in the bucket when you think of all the capital they've chased out of our country. They've chased $1 trillion out of here. Plus we've foregone another $600 billion over the last 10 years because of projects that weren't done. It is outrageous really when you think of what they're proposing here. The structure again is all sort of arm's length independent crown corporation, but it reports to Parliament. So what you're doing here is you're building another bureaucracy. It's not going to be efficient. It's going to be very inefficient because it's all going to be tied in with the government. The purpose, they say, as you mentioned already, to finance major projects of national interest, but they are the ones that define national interest. The market should define national interest by demand and returns on invested capital, not what Mark Carney thinks is national interest. He doesn't have a clue what's really in the best national interest of our country. Leave that up to the market. Let the market make those decisions based upon returns, and then you're going to have true wealth being created. He's talking also about this energy, this investment focus. He does mention LNG, hydro infrastructure, sort of new mines, agriculture, and some technology. But he's also talking a lot about green energy still, and not really where the market is. So that means, again, you're going to probably end up subsidizing projects that don't really have strong economic returns. And if that's the case, and you're not creating wealth, you're just going to blow it, and you're using debt to do it. And then, of course, this whole implementation tools, he says it's going to be coordinated via what he calls major projects office. Again, another bureaucracy. And all of a sudden, we're going to have faster approvals. Why aren't we having faster approvals now? Why don't they change the regulations? He's now going to say we're going to be able to cut down from maybe 5 years to 2 years. But the point is, why aren't we doing that? Why did we slow everything down over the last 10 years, 11 years now that we've had Liberals in there? So when you look at this thing, this is not like a sovereign wealth fund like Norway's, where they actually are taking it out of surplus wealth. They're not debt financing. It's actually extra wealth that's been created by royalties on some of their industries, and in particular the oil and gas when it comes to Norway. Here, we're seeding this with complete debt, so just driving up our deficits further. It's also an issue of if they're going to go further in the debt, that means they're putting pressure on our economy. It's money that we really don't have. It'll probably drive up inflation. They should be what the government should be focusing on is tax cuts, debt repayment, targeting spending restraint, cutting the size of government, and letting the private sector do the investing. That would be efficient. That would not drive up inflation. That would not drive up further debts, put pressure in terms of our interest rates and so on. And as you also know, one of the biggest critiques of this, and we'll see it in action if he actually does this, it will be the government picking winners and losers, and it'll be cronyism. It'll be the buddies. It'll be this public partnerships and the companies that will get the benefits and the favors. It won't be a competitive free marketplace in terms of who's going to get these wins. And so again, we're really concerned about that. If you're in the investment business, you don't want certain people getting advantages, and really it couldn't turn out to be a lot of money laundering to your friends. And certainly that's what we've seen the last 11 years with the Liberals. They really reward their friends. And then there's all this talk in here about unions and special interests and Indigenous folks and so on. And it's just going to get buried more and more in this whole DEI and all the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff. This is not going to be back to a free market. I would be really skeptical in terms of, is this going to the best projects operated by the best people, with the ones with the merit, the ones who know how to deploy the capital most efficiently and effectively? It's going to be a swamp. And I think people should be really concerned about this. This is going to be something that the taxpayers would be on the hook for at the end of the day, and not the businesses. And I think it will be hard to attract a lot of large capital from private businesses into this, because they can see it could turn into a real quagmire and a swamp, and they won't want to be involved in that. So unless it's heavily subsidized, and even then I think it's going to be tricky for businesses to do that. So this is really concerning. It's just top-down government, further Carney type of philosophy. It's not free market. It sounds good on the surface, but once you get below, you just see a lot of cronyism, government involvement, government interference, inefficiencies, ineffectiveness, and instead they should just change all the regulations that they've passed over the last 10 years, free up the market, and get that money to come back in here, because we have a great country with great assets that can be developed by the private sector, not the public sector.
Yeah, it discourages more investment because, of course, anytime you see government getting involved in this sector of the economy or that sector, what does it do? Does it encourage private investors from looking and saying, oh, Canada's a place where I can compete and be successful and make all sorts of money from our investors? No, it does the opposite, because it says the government is going to make the decision as to who makes the money and who doesn't. And it's going to be tax dollars that are going to be thrown around, not private investment. That is what we want. And this is very much in keeping with the practices and policies of this government over the last 10 years. You mentioned $1 trillion leaving the country. That money has been invested in where? In the United States. It's not just Trump doing it, although his policies have certainly encouraged investment in his country. It's our policies that have pushed investment out, pushed capital investment out. And what does the government do? It doubles down on the same failed policies with this sovereign fund, which is really just more looting of the treasury. If this guy was serious about a wealth fund, which I, by the way, have spoken about in this show, I said the Norwegians have it the right way. What he would do is unleash the power of Canadian resources, right? Oil, gas, LNG. Take away the restrictions, ease the regulatory process. They say they do, but they're doing the opposite. And that's why I think they're serving the interests of people who have interest in the oil coming through the states, whereas that 20% of it comes through Iran, where it is now, of course, that we've seen now. And there are people who have interests. The Brits have an interest in there through Lloyd's of London and other companies. They have profited mightily over the fact that so much of the oil has gone through that sensitive part of the world, and they want as much of it going through there as possible. The last thing they want is that people like Canada generating so much in the way of oil sales that it eases the amount of traffic and sensitivity of that strait in the Gulf. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but I didn't come up with this on my own. There's other people have.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Mark, that is essential here is they need to level the playing field so that all the parties have an equal opportunity to develop the resources. And that means you need to change the regulations that Justin Trudeau put in that restrict the development of our resources, and they tie you up for 10 plus years and so on. So no one's going to develop. What they're doing here, what Carney's doing here is he's saying, okay, we'll ease up the process, but for our selected projects.
Yeah.
And that's just ridiculous. That's not going to attract the best money or the best capital. And that's only going to probably benefit the people that are closest to the federal government. That is not going to develop the wealth for Canadians. What they need to say is, listen, everyone's on the same footing. We're going to simplify the regulations. We'll make them the necessary ones to make sure that they're qualified people. They're not raping or destroying anything in our environment. And then open season, guys, go for it. Bring the capital in, make it easy. It has to be predictable, Mark. If you're a business and you're just hocus pocus changing laws here and there, and it's not across the whole board and doesn't look like it's going to be a 10, 15-year time horizon, you're not going to commit long-term capital. You're not going to put $5 billion, $10 billion, $8 billion to work in pipelines or developing our assets here unless there's predictability. And we've already had a number of companies hung out to dry by our government in the past. Enbridge has taken pressure, TransCanada, which is now TC Energy and so forth, they've taken some hits in the past. They're not going to do that again. And this doesn't solve the problem because it just opens up more cronyism and special favors for a certain number of people and their pet projects. It's crazy.
There's another story that's moving now. This was posted by Kirk Lubomov. Rogers is looking to cut half its workforce. That's over 12,000 people. And he says things are fine. Obviously, being facetious there, but this is a story here. Rogers Communications offering buyouts to half its workforce. That is a stunning number of people. The telecommunications industry, I guess, has obviously been under pressure with the consumer changes. What do you make of this?
It's showing, again, the industry has been under massive pressure. As you've said already, that's the telecom side, the entertainment side. Some of the media businesses also are really struggling. We're seeing the effect of technology and competition. I think you think of Starlink and some other satellite services that will continue to put pressure on the pricing of all of the cellular services and the telecom services. Yeah, I think they're going to actually have to slash, as you're seeing here, slash as much employment as possible, become incredibly efficient, and use technology and AI and so forth, all these developments to run their business. But it's a tough business. It's nickel and diming now. And it's not a business that you really want to be in. And from an investment perspective, we've stayed clear of all these telecom and media companies for a long time. The economics are really tough and working against them.
Absolutely, but they also happen to employ a lot of people. I know I was with the regulator for 5 years when I was commissioner of the CRTC, and I can remember back then, you were dealing with a regulator that seemed to see these guys as a giant ATM to fund cultural projects, and you've got to do this and you've got to do that, and you've got to put money with this fund and that fund. And I tried to scale those funds back because there was like death by 1,000 cuts for some of these companies. And now we're seeing the upshot of it. I'm just reminded of what Reagan said about these companies, saying, if they make money, tax them. If they keep making money, regulate them. You stop making money, subsidize them. That seems to be so we've reached the point. A lot of these telecommunications companies were profitable for years, for decades. They did fine. But now we're reaching a point where they're not so profitable. And what are we seeing here? We're seeing layoffs. And they're going to have to change things. Changes have to come in order to allow these companies to get really streamlined and increase the level of competition, which we so desperately need. We need more competition. And usually when you start seeing this sort of thing, then it starts to consolidate. We've already seen a level of consolidation with companies disappearing and being swallowed up by other companies. We had Rogers and Shaw and Bell. We're heading to the day where there's one company, basically. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about, I don't know if you want to put a bow on that statement.
Again, as you pointed out, you see, they've interfered with the media industry, telecom industry, and regulated. And okay, that worked out for a little while because they have basically an oligopoly and they can do quite well. But then there's these other forces of outside of their own business have come in and making it just brutally competitive. Now they've got to really slash down and become much more competitive in terms of their business operations. That's what we're going to continue to see. The competition is very intense in that whole industry. And as I say, it's coming also from the satellite players also. It's like Starlink is going to be, I think, increasingly competitive. And then you've got Amazon doing some things in that space also. And then media is so fragmented as no one watches the programs that a lot of these media, Bell and Rogers have historically had. Very few people watch any of these programs anymore. They're all on the internet. So again, big changes. But the point that's interesting is you're seeing the slashing, you're seeing the downsizing, you're seeing them become more efficient. That's exactly what the government should be doing. And what are we doing? The government gets bigger and bigger and more bloated and more inefficient. That's the problem with the public sector. The private sector does have to respond to competitive challenges and be profitable and be accountable to capital, whereas the government doesn't. And in a socialist woke environment that we have, it just becomes larger and larger. And just like we've talked about before with this sovereign wealth fund, it's just another sizing up of government and more government involved in the private sector. And it's going to be inefficient, ineffective, and will not create the wealth that they're telling us about.
Absolutely. How do people find out about the great services offered by Rocklinc?
Yeah, best is on our internet site, which is rocklinc.com. As you point out, link is with a C at the end of it, LINC. And you can email us at info@rocklinc.com. And I'd love to hear from the listeners and respond. We've got a number of listeners that are clients. And we'll look at your portfolio, give you a free assessment, and see if what we're doing is of interest to you. And we'd love to have you as a client.
Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the show once again. We appreciate it as always.
Great. Thanks, Mark.